Yeah, hello. I hope you are holding up well, staying safe, staying alive, and staying at home for all of us. It's still, church is not a building, and this is part 3. Recall our scripture, a Bible passage, Matthew chapter 10, verse 16, which I call the verse of the animal kingdom. Okay, so I'm sure that you have read and over it. Oh boy. Sand there. Sand has chopped more water and sanitizers these 2 weeks. Anyways. Okay. Well, Matthew chapter 10 verse 16. Let me remind you just in case you have forgotten. It says, "Behold, I send you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. Therefore be as wise as serpents and harmless as doves." Wise and harmless. Okay, and you recall we already did the explanation for the character of sheep and that of wolves, right? So let me try and put it in the like simplest way to look at it, right? Using their character, right? I send you forth as Momo people who only can identify their master and his voice and follow his lead in the midst of very fast, free people who have a lot of power around their jaw and are ready to tear you into pieces. Therefore, be as wise as serpents. Have sense. Okay, and today we're going to talk about the sense man brought serpents, right? And I'm just going to take us a little, let's just go back. This serpent is mentioned in a few places in the Bible, but I have chosen to talk about 4 or 5 so that we use that to identify his character. The first one is in Genesis. You remember the serpent who went to Eve, blah, 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 deceived her, told her a few things, gave her apple, blah. Remember? Okay. So in Genesis, he is described as subtle and deceitful. In fact, he talks. He can hold a conversation. Okay, so then there is also the one in Exodus 4. When God told Moses to go to Egypt and speak to Pharaoh. Blah, and already Moses was convinced that this was what he was going to go and do. So he said, oh, what if these people, you know them now, you know these Egyptians, they are strong and everything. What if they want a proof to see whether truly, he says, okay. What do you have in your hand? Okay, that's that. Ordinary shepherd stick. Don't you say, touch it. Touch the thing, just, it's like a movie. You just change into snake. Ah! Moses and Aaron moved by saying, hey, relax, come forward. Pick the tail. I'll tell you something about that tail very soon. Picked up the tail and boom, snake turns back to stick. The third one was when snakes big people and they were dying, and then that's in Numbers 21, and then they had to do this emblem, which I think doctors and pharmacists now use, as symbol for hospitals and all of that. So put it there. If anyone would look at this serpent here, this brazen one, that one would get healed and come alive. Here at this point is used to show if you obey, obedience and restoration of life and health. Then the Babala one that I really like, John describes this serpent with dragon heads, plenty of horns, coming out, having a fight with Angel Michael, and there's this fight in heaven, Then at the end of the day, boom, the master arrives and he goes under, which for me is a pointer to the second coming of Christ. Isaiah. Okay, so now that we have that biblical guide, there's another one in Mark and Matthew, where the Pharisees and the Sadducees were described as serpents. And yet Christ said to his disciples, don't worry, you will conquer all these ones. And yet, this same serpent, with all these plenty characteristics of living things, as we say in secondary school, characteristics of living things, that's this same serpent. He says, wise. Wise. So why is serpent seen as wise by Christ? Why does he define him? A man, an animal that is seen as evil, as wicked, as depicting devil. Why would Christ ask his disciples to be as wise as this creature? Is devil wise? Well, we will soon find out. So, now let's look at the character of snakes. One important thing that we have to know about the snake is that it has two heads. One at the head as head, and the other one at the tail. The tail one is the one it uses to attract its prey and catch food. The head as the head is the one it uses to set for any oncoming danger. Imagine, double personality, can be anything. Snakes have the ability to pretend that they are dead once they sense any kind of that they don't understand. This is what, in Greek mythology, they see them as symbols of fertility and of the divination between the upper and the lower. And I tell you what, this is not about them, but you and I know that snakes live inside the ground and they can live in between cracks in walls. They can go up the tree and they can go down into a hole. Look at adaptation. Snake, you remember the snake, that green snake under green grass? They can go under the grass to dodge and they will look like the greens. If you are not careful, you get in trouble. The same way they can. So they just have this ability of changing and changing themselves. And is that wisdom? Well, I tell you what, everything we do in life have strategy. You should be able to adapt your strategy to fit into your environment so that you can stay alive. Okay? So you can stay alive. Joshua, do we still have time?
7:58.
Okay, so we have to wrap this up, right? Because internet, 1, 2, time, maximum time for this. Okay, so I'll see you again tomorrow, next class, when our next conversation, when we'll talk about the dove, and then we can tie all of these animals together and how they concern us. Meantime, enjoy yourself. Don't forget, stay indoors, stay alive. It's my pleasure being with you. I love you so much. I decided I shouldn't touch my face. So from far, catch the kiss.